Alright guys, how's it going?
Good.
Good? Had a long day out, it was a bit chilly. Show of hands, who was cold outside today?
Only my toes.
Yeah, why?
Huh?
Because they're all wet.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so most of you are wet, right?
Yeah.
Sweet. Okay, so I'm gonna give you a quick lesson about heat transfer and methods of heat transfer, hypothermia, and winter clothing and layers of clothing. And by the end of this little session here, you'll be able to identify, you know the 5 different methods that heat transfers from your body. You know the early signs of hypothermia, how to prevent that, and you have the basic understanding, and you can make educated choices while going out during the winter with your clothing and clothing layering. Any questions about that? Sweet. First off, I'm gonna hand you guys this neat little handout. You can pass that forward. There's 2 kinds. One is collected summary of what I'm gonna talk about here, and one is a one-sided sheet with a few charts. Pass that around.
I'll pop it down.
Sweet. So, any physics enthusiasts in the house? I forgot, yeah. A few, yeah. So, can you name any ways of heat transfer? You might know this. Induction, yeah. In this context, we're gonna call it conduction, yeah. What else?
Convection.
Convection, yeah. Radiation, yeah. There's a few more. In this context, ways that heat escapes the human body.
Respiration.
Respiration, yep.
Perspiration.
Alright.
Evaporation.
Perspiration.
Yeah. Perspiration, yeah. That's it. We're gonna start with radiation. So, radiation is the primary cause of heat loss from the human body, and majority of your of the heat of your body radiates from your head and your neck. At 10 degrees Celsius, which is 50 degrees Fahrenheit, up to 50% of your loss of body heat is because you have uncovered head and neck. When it's -5 or -15 or 5 Fahrenheit, it's up to 75%. So you should always wear a hat or some kind of a neck tube while you're playing outside. A good example of radiation as a way of heat transfer is you can try to figure out if a stove is on by placing your hand near it but not touching it, so you can feel the radiation of it. What's that? Thanks. The second one we're talking about is convection, and that's by the medium that your body radiates to, in this case air, moves away from you, thus again making your surroundings colder. So humans radiate heat to the surrounding air around us. If the air is still, we're pretty good, but if it's windy, the wind is going to blow the heated air out and your body has to heat up the surrounding air again, and thus a great example of that is you can still be cold even though it's super sunny and warm outside, because if it's super windy. Conduction is the way heat transfers out of you with a direct contact of an object. So if you sit on a cold log or cold stones or whatever, or in the snow, you're in direct contact of a cold surface, your body is going to lose heat. Good example of this is when you have a snowball in your hand, your finger's going to freeze if you don't have mittens on. And the rest, we have respiration. How heat is transferred to respiration is when you inhale cold air, your body is drained from heat. Like heat is transferred into the cold air in your lungs, so it warms up to your body heat, and then you exhale the warm heated air. So thus part of your body heat has been exhaled because it increased the temperature of the air inside your lungs. Does that make sense? Yeah, pretty straightforward. Right? And evaporation is, everybody's familiar with the term evaporation? Yeah. Somebody who isn't? Yeah. So that's when a liquid turns into a gas. And every time as a matter changes the form, it drains energy. In this case, it's heat. So when you sweat, and then your sweat evaporates, it cools you off, thus you lose some body heat. So why is this important? What happens if we lose too much of body heat? Go. Nice segue there. Yeah. Hypothermia is when your body temperature drops below the normal, give or take 37 degrees Celsius or 90 something Fahrenheit. Has any of you experienced hypothermia before?
Yes.
Got your
2
hands.
times.
What kind was it?
What?
How did you feel like?
The first time that happened to me, I was shivering like really hard.
Yeah.
And they had to put me on the what's the name of the thermal.
Like a thermal blanket thing, yeah.
Yeah. And the second one was because we were taking a shower on a really cold river that was like we were at like 5,000 meters above sea level.
Nice.
And it was like minus 12 outside, and the river was like not frozen for some reason.
Right.
And we took a shower there.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
So who was having shivers today at some point? Was it so cold that you were shivering? Well,
I was sweating.
yeah. But even though like most of you don't recognize that you've actually been hypothermic, shivering is the first step or sign of hypothermia. Because that's when your body wants to start moving your muscles in order to generate heat. So pretty much every one of us has at some point in their lives been slightly hypothermic. So yeah, the first a few tell signs of hypothermia is the shivering. And what else? You guys know? What usually happens if you're slightly cold in your fingers?
You start to turn like white.
Yeah.
Numbness.
Yeah, they get numb and you lose like fine motor skills, right?
Yeah.
That's because your body starts to fight the cold and it prioritizes your internal organs over your extremities. So you start to shut down your veins in your extremities because they're expendable in order to keep yourself alive. Thus, blood starts to flow out of your extremities into your core system, and then you start to, lose feeling, and that's why your fingers are pretty much cold because you don't have warm blood flow. The second stage, going a bit deeper into this survival instinct, is your body starts to slow down your pulse and your metabolism in order to keep you alive, hopefully. Kind of the wish is it will get warm again at some point. If it's cold winter, it probably won't. Weak pulse, slow breath, lack of coordination, and people usually get kind of disoriented, might stumble upon because, again, blood flow from your brain starts to hinder and being directed elsewhere.
The other thing too, if they're cold enough, they'll actually stop shivering.
Yeah.
To the body.
Yeah. And the last stage of hypothermia is complete loss of consciousness, and people get really disoriented. They might know where they are, and some people have described also like a feel of warmth. Suddenly you feel okay, even though you're not. So, given the 5 stages of ways that we can lose heat, how can we prevent hypothermia?
Layers.
Yeah, sure. So just adequate clothing, right? What else? Yeah, moving. Like, because body is a biomechanical machine, right? So we burn about 2,000 kilocalories of energy just by, walking around. So we generate a lot of heat. As people who know a bit of physics know that most of energy is lost through heat. So that's also like just our body's metabolism generates a lot of heat. So moving around, yeah. And then we have clothing. So clothing,
Food, good.
yeah. Eat something, get something warm inside your system so your body doesn't have to warm up, right?
Staying hydrated.
Staying hydrated.
Staying close to a fire.
Yeah. External heat source, sure. What else? There's one more. Let's put it this way. Even though if I have clothes on, can I get hypothermic?
Yes.
Why?
Moisture.
If my clothes get super wet, they lose their what's it called?
Water.
Insulation. Yeah, because water transfers heat 25 times faster than air, pretty much. So that kind of brings us to a nice segue to our layering system. Who is not familiar with layering clothing? Like, completely new thing. Anyone? I can't see, so you have to say yes if there's somebody. Good. Everybody knows at least something. Can you guys give me the basics? Or you can use the cheat sheet which I have provided for you.
More
Base
layers,
layer,
more-
meat layer, and
Yeah.
base layer, meat layer.
Any gear geeks, material geeks here? Except for Gaia. So yeah. There's a few types of materials. We have synthetic fabrics, which are polyester, nylon, spandex, and synthetic fleece. And the advantage of these fabrics is they're hydrophobic. So what it means is they don't really absorb water inside the fibers and the filaments. So what it means is those kind of clothes dry pretty quickly, and you can wring water out of them pretty easy. Because all the moisture that gets sucked into these kind of synthetic clothes is in the space in between the fibers, not the fibers in themselves. Does that make sense? Like you could imagine a synthetic fiber being just like a solid piece of rope kind of thing. The downfall of synthetic materials is that they get super stinky
and destroy the environment.
and destroy it. Yeah, microplastics is a big thing. Or like fleece, for example, if you wash it, it's like teeny tiny bits of plastic gets washed away and they end up in fish or whatever. So synthetics, well, they're basically plastic. And the other one gets super stinky. So anyone who has done like active sports or whatever, if you toss your gym bag in the corner of your room and it stays there for a week and then you open it up, it's gonna be nasty, right? That's because bacteria likes to live. It's like a breeding ground for some reason. And then synthetics, the competition for synthetics is natural fibers. We have cotton, we have wool, viscose, to name a few. You guys know what's the deal with cotton is? Why is it
That it gets wet
kind of weird? Yeah.
easy, and then it's really hard to
Yeah.
get
it takes a
dry.
long time to dry.
Exactly. And those reasons are bound. Like, unlike synthetics, cotton fiber is hollow. So you can imagine like a single fiber of cotton is like a straw. And here's a hollow space in between. It sucks water really, really well. It can hold almost like 27 times of its own weight water. This is cool when it's hot day outside. It keeps you cool. But the moment you can't get it dry and it gets cold, you're in trouble. Well, because as previously mentioned, water transfers heat a lot. So if you have something that's wet on your skin, you can't get it dry and it just sucks the warmth out of you, right? Viscose, for example, and modal and rayon, some natural fibers out there, just chemically they have done a chemical process on them. They're essentially like cotton, and they carry all the negative side effects that cotton has. Basically just the fact that it sucks a lot of water in. Wool, on the other hand, has this kind of a reputation being warm, even though water is wet, which is good. But the thing is, like, even though wool is better than cotton, even though if you have a cloth that is wet and damp, it still needs a lot of energy to get dry, right? Because you have to evaporate all the water. But if you had to pick one out of natural fibers, I would go for a wool anytime. And the plus side is, if you're on it's kind of a big expedition kind of thing, your tent mates are going to appreciate you more because your wool and clothes won't stink that much. And that's a real thing. And then insulation wise, we have synthetic and down filling. Do any one of you own a down jacket? Yeah? What about synthetic ones? A few.
Probably, yeah.
So, what are the pros and cons for down?
It's really light and packs down small.
Yeah, that's a pro, yeah. What else? It's warm, yeah.
It absorbs water really well.
Hmm?
It absorbs water really
Yeah,
well.
that's a con.
That's a con.
Yeah, so compared to synthetics, down filling has the best compressibility to weight to insulation ratio that we have. And it's super warm, it's lightweight, it gets packed really, really solid on a small little bundle. But the problem with it absorbs moisture, so you can't really use it in wet conditions. And if it gets damp, it's super hard to dry out. So and it loses all of its insulation value because all the down, what's it called? Feathers.
Phil?
Is it feathers? Yeah.
Yeah, feathers.
Just backs up and they lose all the loft, which is practically what the insulation is based off. It's just a layer of air in between all the feathers. So it just backs down and it's wet, so it conducts heat out of you, right? Synthetics don't have this problem. They are really good for damp weather because they conduct water and they breathability, and they don't absorb it so much, so they don't really weight that much. But the problem with synthetic is that they're slightly heavier than down, and they don't they can't go through as many compression and expansion cycles until the fibers start to break. Sweet. So that brings us down to the layering itself. We have a base layer, which is basically your underwear, or the next of skin layer. Then we have and base layer's job is basically just to transfer moisture, your sweat, out of your skin into outer layers that you have. Second one is a middle layer that it's going to provide you a bit more insulation by trapping more air in between you and the next layer of clothes. Just traps body heat, keeps the cold out, and also works as a moisture transfer. Then we have an outer layer, which is usually called a shell layer, and basically its only job is to keep the elements out and keep yourself warm. So protects you from the rain, so all your gear doesn't get damp or wet, or wind, so all the heat doesn't blow away if it's super windy. And then there is a thermal layer. Some people like to divide these into 3. I did it in 4. And the last one is going to be thermal layer. So if you are active on the move, hiking somewhere, or building a Quincy, and then you decide to stop, that's something you can don on quickly. It has high insulation value. It's like super bulky and super warm. Sweet. Any questions so far? No? You're just sleepy, I know. Okay. I'm just gonna give you guys a few examples of what some of these gears would look like and how to build a proper layering system. Ooh, here. So, we do have a lot of different options for different kind of circumstances. Different solutions for really windy and damp conditions and cold and dry conditions and something in between. So much stuff.
So much
Like
extra
a yard
clothes
sale,
you
isn't it?
didn't need for this trip.
Huh?
So many extra clothes you didn't need for this trip.
Oh, I do need them right now, right? Oh, clever. Alright.
It's quick.
So, let's make this an interactive exercise. If I was here in my birthday suit, completely naked, how would I start build myself a kit? Just throw things out at me.
Underwear and socks.
Underwear and socks.
Please.
See.
Thank you for the visual, Ronnie.
Let's see what we have here. We have a
A pair of leggings.
long-sleeved merino wool shirt. Doesn't smell, it's good. And it's warm when it's damp. And it dries pretty good. So, a merino base layer. Or we could have a synthetic long johns, for example. Then what? What's the next step?
Socks.
Base layer on, socks. Yeah. Got big woolen socks. Or have like a lighter pair. No. Oh, here we go. Like a sport sock. These are synthetic. Because, like you might know, feet get super sweaty. So, synthetic is good for them. And then thick woolen sock to actually keep my feet warm. I usually wear a double sock when I'm outside in the winter because well, the ground is super cold and it's important to insulate your feet from the cold ground. So now I have my socks on and my base layer on. What's next? Gaio, help me out here.
Thermal air?
Yeah, mid layer.
Mid layers.
Yep. My favorite piece of clothing. A fleece.
Oh yeah, fleeces.
Pretty sweet, synthetic. Fleece are pretty good because they have a really good warm to weight ratio and they don't really absorb moisture, so they quick pretty easy and they're super light. Even though you should try to not to use fleece because of, it has an environmental impact because of microplastics and whatnot. But I try not to wash this too often, so that's my input, saving the world. And it's stinky.
It's
I
stinky.
appreciate it.
Yeah, this is for Gaia. Okay, I got my fleece, or in addition, I could have, if I know I was gonna be like a super stationary somewhere, this knit heavier kind of pullover shirt works pretty well. Not in a high exertion activities, but just hanging around the campfire. Then another option for mid layers that actually myself love pretty much is I have a pair of synthetic puffy pants. These are awesome. They don't absorb water, they just, or moisture, they just transfer it out, synthetic, so it doesn't get wet even it's damp, when it's damp outside. This is my go-to piece. It packs pretty small. Right, okay, then we have the mid layer. What's next?
Shell.
The shell, yeah. So for shell, I like to wear these like super compressible, lightweight Gore-Tex pants. They compress down to, you know, the size of my fist, but they're like complete full Gore-Tex. It keeps me dry. And moisture management and heat management is good because when you start to sweat, you have vents that dumps all the heat, so you can actually wear an outer layer and not be soaked with your own sweat because you can just dump the heat with vents, right? And then for a jacket, I've got this sweet Gore-Tex jacket here. Same thing. Doesn't really have any insulation in it. Just pretty much Gore-Tex fabric, an outer shell fabric, just, you know, for durability. Same thing. If I'm doing a high output activity like ski touring or whatever, I usually wear a base layer and a shell just to give me protection from the elements because I know I'm going to be running hot because I'm, you know, doing a high physical activity. So just wear one of these on top of my base layer and just, you know, open up all the vents and whatever zippers I can find so I can manage the heat and the moisture. And obviously, I don't know if you guys have heard the saying, if your feet are cold, put on a hat.
Yep.
Why is that?
Because if your feet are cold, that's one of the places where the cold is gonna get into your entire body.
As mentioned previously, 50% to 75%, depending on the temperature, of your heat loss is radiation to your head and your neck. So if you're cold, wear a hat. Sweet. And then a pair of mitts, waterproof obviously, so because nothing is nastier than damp fingers, especially when building a Quincy. So if anyone needs these, I can lend it out. Okay. And
Too
then
late for that.
one final thing, if I'm doing a highly output activity and then I know I'm gonna stop for a longer period of time, I have this
I love those.
down jacket. Packs up really small. The pouch of this side, like half of my head. Fast. I can don it on and just, you know, stand around, do nothing, and still gonna be cozy. If it would start to rain or whatever, I could change the order of these clothes to have this as a mid layer and then put a shell layer on top just to protect me from the rain or whatever the case might be. Any questions so far? Neat. Everybody's sleeping. I'm lucky I can see you, so it's okay. Alright. That's all for now. Take a look at the chart table I made for you so you can note the wind chill effect, which is basically just when it's cold and then you add wind to it, so how much more you actually lose body heat and how much more you have to wear clothes. And then there's just a little chart about temperatures and combinations of different layers. And the ingenious side of layering system is just the fact that you can take something out and put something on really easily instead of having one big bulky jacket. You don't have you only have the option to have it on or not to have it. So now you can have a lot of say in how comfortable you want to be, what you're doing, and how warm you're gonna be. That is all. Hopefully you learned something new. Thanks for listening.
Yay.